forever to the King of Kings.
21 years ago, Mark DeMaz had a vision. He wanted to open a bustling and diverse church in a poor part of Little Rock.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with us live here in person and online.
Today, he leads Mosaic Church, a Christian community of some 500 congregants.
Hey, did you enjoy church this morning? How was that?
Enjoyed it.
Hey, y'all.
He did it in part by buying up a former Kmart and slowly converting it into a church.
Hey, Miss Bertha, how are you?
But he wouldn't have made it if he hadn't also done something unique. Opened up a for-profit coffee shop in the lobby and taken on tenants next door. So far, a fitness center, with plans to add a grocery store next year. Now, DeMaz is trying to sell faith leaders on his economic vision, that to survive in today's world, all churches need to be structured more like businesses.
Traditionally, churches are run in a funding way through tithes and offerings. The people attend your church, they put money into the offering plate, it pays the bills, it pays the salary of the pastor, it pays the mortgage payment. There is a business model to the church. We don't like to talk about it, people don't want to necessarily think about it, but there is an economic reality to every church. The more that people joined our church, the homeless, the immigrant, the undocumented, the poor, it cost us money. And we realized if we're going to have effective ministry, we're going to have to develop multiple streams of income.
So if you want to open a church in a place like this, you have to find another way to make some money.
That's not just an urban reality anymore. With less people attending church, offerings going down, it doesn't matter now if you're in the suburbs. See, what we learned in the inner city 20 years ago is now true across the country.
The challenge is real. The number of adults who say they attend church weekly has declined steadily over the past several years. Just 65% of Americans describe themselves as Christian, down from 77% a decade ago. Rebecca Glazier studies how changes like this are impacting the Little Rock religious community.
I think that religion is less central to American life than it used to be, and people just are not identifying with formal religious institutions and finding spiritual fulfillment through them the way that they used to in generations past.
Are you seeing churches start to turn to alternative sources of income, including running their own businesses even?
Congregations that maybe aren't using these large buildings, they're starting to think about how they might repurpose them. Some people are just letting nonprofits or letting 12-step programs use that space for free. Some are really looking ahead to how they can use that as a way to fill that income gap.
Mixing money and religion isn't exactly new, and it hasn't always turned out so well.
Do you ever use your private jets to go visit your vacation homes, for example?
Yes, I do.
A pastor at a local megachurch stands up for buying his wife a $200,000 Lamborghini.
Pastor Creflo Dollar asked his followers to buy him a $65 million private jet.
DeMaz says what he's proposing is about necessity, not excess.
Again, thanks to all the sponsors. Let's give them a hand. All the sponsors helping to make it work. We really appreciate that.
But the venture itself is for sale. He's sold about 5,000 copies of his book on what he calls church economics, and hosts an online seminar where, for $3,600, religious leaders can learn about the theological implications of running a business out of a church, and how to do it without running afoul of the IRS.
You will not lose your tax-exempt status by generating income if you play by the rules.
One of the people he's recently been working with is Pastor Stephen Smith, who leads one of Little Rock's largest Southern Baptist congregations. They already have an extra building they use for charitable works.
So this is on the days that we have it. So this.
Oh, wow.
These are, just given by donations.
Now they're debating the wisdom of using the rest of the space as a for-profit events venue.
So we are using this right now as a rent space. People can use it, but we haven't quite thrown the doors open.
Yeah, you're in the trial period.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you guys seem to be doing okay, right?
Yeah.
Looking at that big church on the hill, the money seems all right now.
Yes, giving strong. People have been very generous. Historically, the church has been very generous. As for millennials, it's a huge issue. There's not the passion to support the old systems. The idea of some large monolith having everything is gone, including the church. And so for this to be sustained means one of two things has to happen. The value of giving extremely generously has to be passed on to the next generation. And if that giving base is not there to sustain these ministries, we've got to find other ways to do that.
Are there any concerns if a church starts getting mixed up in business matters? Are there things that worry you about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if someone were to use the space, they sign a contract with a church. Well, that's really helpful because as evangelical Christian church, we have very clear moral standards, guidelines that would prohibit a lot of things that people would want to use an event space for.
Is that really a good moral cause for churches to open the door to becoming businesses, to monetizing side projects?
I understand that perception. I think I'd have to sit down with someone and walk them through what we're doing and showing that any money that we were to make by renting the space goes back into serve the space. I think money can corrode things perhaps if they're not internal financial checks and balances, which we believe we have. But I think the real issue is it corrodes the heart who thinks that money is the end and not the means to an end.
It's a little uncomfortable, this idea of a house of worship also being a business. Isn't that a little problematic on a spiritual level to be mixing these things?
What we're not saying is run the church like a business in the sense of making top dollar or in the sense of making as much money as you can possibly make for investors or for your stocks or whatever. That's not what we're talking about. But I want to get something out of it, again, to make and to keep us sustainable.
It just feels like a little bit of a gray area, a little bit of a slippery slope even, this idea that you're saying, okay, let's open the door to business. Well, you could find yourself in a situation where there are pastors who are running churches and businesses and enriching themselves tremendously, right? These all seem like potential consequences of opening this door.
Can that happen? Yes, it can. It's already happening. But it shouldn't prevent the rest of us who have a very strong theological grounding, who have good accountability from practicing economic wisdom and the practice of church economics.